May the mother smile down on this gathering with love. May the smith mend the bonds that have been broken for too long. And to Vaemon Valerian, may the gods give him rest. Chris, Christ almighty, mate, I feel like a virgin on a wedding night. We've peaked too early. It's only episode 8. We've only gone and got Paddy Considine on. Paddy, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you? Hey, Chris.
Really good.
Very privileged to have a king in the room.
My God, I feel like I don't know where to salute, stand, or whatnot. We're recording this Monday, 10th of October, just after midday. And what I imagine is one of your first interviews post episode 8, which now I'm going to go out on a limb and say that was Viserys' dying breath we saw just as the credits rolled. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, you're absolutely bang on. Yeah, he's gone at last.
At last. Don't say that. I flipping loved him. I loved him. I'm just going to kickstart this off by saying thank you, Paddy. Thank you so much. And I think I speak on behalf of all Thrones fans, all new House of the Dragon fans, because fucking hell, mate, you did an absolute stand-up job. It was incredible to watch. I know we spoke just after, I think it was announced that you got the gig, and then we spoke just at the premiere. And I mean, how could you have been nervous at the beginning of this, knowing what you'd just done? Because it was just incredible. And I don't want to blow smoke up your ass. I'm sure it's deeply uncomfortable for everyone involved. But did you walk away? Did you walk away from your last day of set going, yeah, nailed that? How do you feel?
I crawled away from my last day on set, not walked.
Was it grueling? Was it pretty grueling?
Shooting the last scene was it was grueling, and it was a long shoot, and it was the end of a very long shoot. And I think we were all just sort of like wanting to get over the finish line by that point. But it felt fitting that the final scene is this final meal that I have with my family. So it just sort of felt fitting really to end that way. But and I do deliver this final speech and sort of like I'm taken away, and it was a really, really sort of poignant way for me to finish the show. Really, I went out. It was a bit of a mic drop, really, I suppose. Like, right, fucking have it.
Hell of a...
all this throne, all this shit, like, have it. I'm off.
And did you know when you took the gig? Did you know the full story arc of Viserys? Was that part of the reason you took it? Because it's a hell of a daunting prospect to sign up for something. I guess some of the actors have signed up for 5, 6, 7, however many series there are. But for you, was that part of the appeal, knowing that you could kind of sneak in season 1, mic drop, and be away with you? How was that part of the process for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, the most important thing, Jamie, was that there was an actual arc there for him that I saw when I eventually got to read all of the scripts. I just saw that there was an actual journey that this character went on. So I felt like that he had quite a complete story, really. And the world of Game of Thrones, characters are kind of, they disappear at certain points of the stories. And I felt like here's a character that actually has his story told, and we see the beginning of it and the end of it. And then when I read the scripts, I was just grateful that there was something there. There was something about Viserys that resonated with me. And I just, I remember saying to my agent, I said, who's passed on this? Who don't want to do it? Because that's how I usually get things. They come down a long line. And he went, nobody. They just come to you.
Who's normally the first?
Well, I don't know, but it's true.
For me, it's always Danny Wallace or Rick Edwards. If both of those have passed on it, I usually get the job. I can't imagine who'd be above you, though, Paddy, to be honest.
I'm not sure, but there's definitely, they Google you and see what you're worth, and if you're not worth tuppence, they don't pursue it. That kind of stuff does happen. So I was grateful when I got the part through, and Miguel and Ryan had really considered me for the part, to the point that I didn't even audition for it. And I thought, wow, what a gamble on their part, and what have they seen in me that they think I can bring to this character? And I just thought it was an absolute gift. He came along at the right time. And years ago, I worked with I didn't actually work with him. I just did some workshops with Anthony Minghella, and it was for a film that he was doing, and it was for a character that I was not right for. And he said to me after doing a few workshops, he said, "Do you love this character?" And I said, no, I don't. I don't really feel much about him. He said, "Then you can't play him because you need to love the characters that you play." And I thought that was I walked away thinking, I'm not sure if he's right about that. I haven't liked every character I've played, but he did have a point. And I can say that I really, really loved Viserys Targaryen. I was so respectful of the role, and I took it very, very seriously. To me, it was like playing a king in Shakespeare or something like that, and that's how seriously I took it. And it was just a chance for me to just kind of do something that I've never had the privilege to do before as an actor. Just do some different things and, give a different presentation to anything that I'd ever done before.
Chris?
Yeah, well, I was just blown away by that episode because the transformation physically and sort of what's happened in that time jump is amazing. I mean, could you tell us a bit about wearing all these prosthetics? Because you must have been in that makeup chair about 18 hours a day, were you? Like getting all the cheek and the eye and can you tell us a bit about that?
It felt like it. It felt like a long 18 hours, Chris, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, we're looking in hindsight and there were long days. I was there like 4 or 5 hours before anybody else. And when I say that, me and my team were there. I had a fantastic team around me and they were brilliant. And it is a long time sitting there. But, when I was a kid, I used to like looking at all these, I love Universal Monsters, and I'd see these, Boris Karloff sitting in the chair with a cup of tea, being made up. And I think I'd love to do that. And then you sit down in the chair and they're pasting everything to your face and you just go, oh God, I can't wait to get this off my fucking face. And there's another 14 hours to go. But I don't know, really. I forget the makeup's there. And I think that's the thing you have to do, even with costume and things. I just sort of forget they're there, really, and let the artists do their art, and you're just there to play the role. So it was just one of those things you just accepted it's a part of the job and a part of the transformation. But yeah. Was
there a lot of CGI on the latest episode because of the weight loss that Viserys in his final moments he was all skin and bone, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I mean, we got around that because that was only a decision that was made. The actual weight loss itself was only a decision that was made about halfway through. We were filming the show. We were months into it, and I'm like, well. And the way we shot the show was that I couldn't sort of go on a diet in any way and lose that weight because we were shooting so out of story order. We could, for example, we could be shooting episode 2 one day. And then the next day we're doing episode 6 as an example. And it moved around quite a lot. So I couldn't fluctuate the weight in any way. And I couldn't make that work. So how we did it was the makeup was on me and I acted the scene out and played the scene. And then they got a kind of double in who was one of the extras, I think, who was a very, very thin guy. And he sort of just copied my movements. So they had like a little map that they could work from then and do whatever they needed to do to trim it down. But it wasn't something that I could achieve as an actor because of the way that the schedule sort of moved around too much.
Christian Bale sweats a bead of relieved sweat trickles down his forehead, knowing that there was no time for Paddy to do the coffee and apple diet.
Single apple a day,
but I've lost weight for roles in the past. I've got quite skinny for certain things, and it's all about your energy as well. And but with Christian Bale, one of the shocks about that was the physicality of it, and that was very much a part of the character. It wasn't this sort of you meet somebody at a certain point and then you see a decline. He's already declined, and
that's true.
And within that time frame, it just wouldn't have been possible to do it because, like I said, we were just moving around the story too much.
Yeah, and you talk about how it was apparent how seriously you took it. I'm sure a lot of everyone actor says I took the part seriously, but there's a, especially in something like Thrones or one of these big fantasy series, there is I guess a temptation to ham it up or to kind of be a bit more Gandalf about the whole thing and stuff, which I think all fans of the show would be really grateful that you didn't, because you gave a much loved universe to so many people, the respect that I think everyone has for it, and this episode was so moving, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a couple of things really. One is, and for me, part of why I love Viserys so much, and your performance was the voice. He just had this incredible voice, especially in this episode. There, did you work hard on that? Did you spend a lot of time on that, or was it just something that was that how you imagined the sickness to have been, or was it the fact they only had half a mouth left, or where did that come from? Because it was a beautiful voice.
Yeah, he just started. I mean, what I did early on was like map the sickness, and just get to a final point of where I thought he'd gone physically. And then it was just about tracing that back, and you had to stay on top of that, like I say, because of the scheduling thing. He struggled to breathe. He struggled with his energy, and he struggled to breathe. And in a kind of sad way, if I'm honest, I watched my dad die of cancer, and he died so rapidly within weeks that I'd sat at that bedside and I'd seen a man go through so many different stages, and the most heartbreaking one for me was the most terrified. He was terrified. At one point, I looked at him and he was absolutely terrified. And you could see the terror in his eyes. This wasn't some like slow, lovely death here, and the angels are coming to get me. I kind of thought that he feared what was beyond, this realm. And to see a fear in a man's eyes like that is very sort of sobering. There's a truth about it that is undeniable. And I think because my wife watched some of episode 8 this morning, and she definitely saw that quality of my dad dying that I put into Viserys at that point, just fighting for breath, just fighting to stay alive. And so there's heartbreaking elements to him, but I think that's my job. As an actor, I'm not somebody who's schooled in any way. I never went to acting school, and I was never trained. So I always sort of try to imbue a character with as much truth as I possibly can. They don't always give you that opportunity, but Viserys did. And so I just put elements of my mother into him as well. She was a woman who suffered with her health. In the end, she had her legs amputated and she was blind. And it was a really sad thing to see, but my mother almost her sickness became a crutch. And I think that's a choice I made for Viserys as well, that the sicker he got, the more he decided that he didn't want to deal with duty, that he just wanted to die. And I think he made the decision to die the day that he burnt his wife's funeral pyre. I think from that day onwards, really, he stopped living. So he's a sad character. I saw massive tragedy in him. And that's another thing to point out that kind of annoyed me about some of the response, was that people thought Viserys killed his wife. And he chose to kill his wife and save his son. And that's not the case. That's not what I was pitched, and that's not what I heard. They are both going to die. The only saving grace is that we can save the child, possibly, but we're going to have to put your wife through this horrific, life-ending procedure. She's going to die anyway, but she's going to die horrifically. And that's a choice that he makes, not to kill her. And that's something that he never, ever recovers from. And I think from the day of her funeral, because never once as he's getting sick, is he saying to the maesters, can you cure me? What can you do for me? That's so everyone else around him is rallying to make him better. He's not. It's almost like he's accepted it as some kind of punishment in a way for his choice.
And as his brain starts to get foggier, he often refers back to his first wife as well. Mistaking Alicent for her, which is the ultimate burn. All of that kind of stuff. And the last words that Viserys uttered right at the end of episode 8 were he reaches up and he says, "My love." Now, fan theories already swooping the internet saying was that Viserys? Had he seen his first wife? Do you think was that what you were playing, or was
Yeah,
it
I
just
was
a
talking.
phrase?
No, I was talking to Git because that was improvised. There's a couple of lines they left in that I said, which I'm really grateful to them for. But I remember having this discussion with Gita about his last moment, and I said, and he sees something in that last moment, and I never shared it with her until that final day. I just feel like, and I was asking Ryan, what is it in this world? Is there a notion of the afterlife? What are their beliefs? What do they believe? What is this a possibility that they believe in a heaven, or in an afterlife in any way? But absolutely, in that last moment, I can tell every fan on the planet, and they can have all the theories they want, because it was my choice. He sees Emma. That's who he sees, and he says to her, "My love." And that's the end of his story. And his story is a tragic love story. And that's why he's so imbued with this passion for Rhaenyra, because she's the last remaining part of Emma. And that's why he's so fiercely protective of her and stands up for her, because when he sees her, when she's just given birth and he sees her glowing in that way, all he sees is Emma, and she's the last piece of her. So it's a love story in my mind, but that's who he sees when he says goodbye.
Bloody hell, Paddy! Oh, I'm welling up. Chris, take over. I'm filling up.
Yeah, well, I thought there was something really beautifully full circle in this episode, because he meets his grandson, who Rhaenyra has named after him, Viserys. I thought that was such a beautiful way of everything coming full circle, life and death, and also the fact that Rhaenyra has given birth to another son, and he's been named after the king. But I wondered if you could actually answer something that I've had a question I've had in my mind a couple of weeks, which is that Viserys doesn't seem to have spent much time with his children that he's had with Alicent, with Aegon, Aemond, and Helena. Were you kind of aware that was intentional? That, like, because Emma had died, like, a part of him had sort of died too, and even when his new wife does produce male heirs, he doesn't seem to have bonded with them in much of a way.
No, he doesn't bond with them, and by that point, that's part of him giving up to his sickness, giving up to his duty a little bit, and he doesn't spend time with those kids, even when they're fencing in the courtyard. He's full of his grandchildren more so than his actual children, and that's something I think. He values them more than he does his own children through Alicent, definitely, because it's that same thing that relates back to Emma. And now it's beyond producing a male heir. Yes, he has male heirs, but it's beyond that now. He's too sort of, I suppose, he's too kind of emotionally occupied with what he's lost, and that's the thing, I think, that why he can't make that connection with those children like he does Rhaenyra and her children.
And one question that I've been asking for the past few weeks as well is the legitimacy of Rhaenyra's kids. Sir Strong versus Laenor and stuff. Viserys knew. Did he know? By that point, he knew, right?
He's not an idiot.
None of it, right?
This kind of bothered me, Jamie, because at some point I thought Viserys is becoming a joke. Like, people think he's stupid or something. And I'm like, he knows full well. He's not an idiot. He knows full well. And that's why he's very much like, everybody keep your mouth shut. I won't hear a word uttered. It's because he knows. And he says it to Alicent in one of the episodes as well. She implies it. And he basically says, you do better just to let it go. He absolutely knows that they're not Laenor's children. Absolutely, categorically.
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
And to throw another fan theory at you already, I mean, it only aired 8 hours ago in the UK, and the people are going, you're gonna have smoke blown up your arse anyway, so I may as well do a little bit of it now. everyone's already talking awards, Emmys. For me personally, it was one of the greatest Thrones performances, single episode performances of all time. It was just wonderful, and in particular, and as with a lot of the great moments in House of the Dragon, very few words. Matt Smith, Damon has hardly said a bloody word all season. He got away scot-free, and your greatest scene, I think, was when you arrived at the in the throne room and you did the long walk to the throne. It was just beautiful. It was really heartbreaking. Fans are already saying that you dropped the crown falling off your head and Damon picking it up for you was improvised. Please set my mind at rest.
Absolutely, it was improvised. That walk was all about his last walk. I'd made my mind up on that day that make a lot of decisions yourself privately, and I think Viserys wakes that morning and knows that this is the last day of his life. I just think, and I had this discussion with Geeta. I said it's like dogs when they go away to die alone. I said this guy knows that this is the last day, and this is it. This is the last time he will walk to that throne room, and the last time he will ascend those stairs. That's it. This is the last walk to sit on that poison seat. And so it had to be this sort of slow, painful walk, which I regretted after because I put my hip out. I had these walking sticks that kept breaking and snapping and things like that. But it was a poignant moment. And then as he goes to go up the stairs, on one of the takes, the crown fell off my head and smashed on the floor. And Matt picked it up. And we walked to the top of the steps and I sit on the throne, and then Matt took it and placed it on my head. And after we said cut, I just ran down to Geeta and said, that's got to stay. That beat has got to stay because it wasn't in the script. And you just have to make sure, because on some sets that wouldn't be used. They wouldn't use it. They wouldn't see that moment. They wouldn't. But Geeta was able to see it. And I said, Geeta, we've got to keep that moment. It's a great moment. And then him putting the crown on his brother's head, we must keep that. So me and Matt fought for that moment to be in there. We had a little discussion, and so it stayed in. And every time we did the take, I tried to get it to fall off my head, but we got it all the same. But it was a mistake. It was absolutely a mistake. But it created a beautiful moment. And as actors, that's the playground you want to be in. When that stuff happens, you want to be around people that can see that too and go, that's a moment. So you can deviate from the script sometimes and what's on the page. And Geeta, was good enough and insightful enough to be able to see that as a great moment. And I think it's a beautiful moment, but it was improvised, yeah. Or it was an accident and it stayed in, yeah.
Well, it served the narrative perfectly as well, didn't it? Served
it's
the relationship between... Yeah, the relationship between Damon and Viserys was extraordinary, and I loved the resolution that had. I loved it. It was just so touching. Yeah. Chris, I'm waffling.
This scene with Viserys going into the throne room, when I watched it this morning, because I first watched it a few days ago. When I watched it this morning, the thing that was most struck by is that the way that Viserys is walking with his arms, and he's got his sticks and his head stooped. He looks like the dragons do when they're about to take flight. It's so clever because he looks like the dragon taking one last ascension up to the throne. And it's really clever because he's not had a dragon. And I think so much of this season, it's like he's the Targaryen without a dragon. Who is he when he's not king? And it was so clever to see him making that walk and kind of getting up there. It was just beautiful. I thought it was so clever. And I thought it was just, really, really smart.
Well, Chris, this is the part where you take the brush and you do the painting. This is the stuff where, you start to put your own spin on things, and and you start to see these things, and that's where the exciting things happen and the fun begins. Is where you make that observation, because I'm not going to bullshit you and say that was a choice, because it wasn't. it really wasn't. But the fact that you've seen that and you've made that connection is a really cool thing.
Yeah, we love doing this podcast because we come on every week and we just share ideas and thoughts, and how it's really interesting how each of us respond to things differently as well. And I thought one thing also that I'd love to talk about is just the way that we talked about this in our last conversation, Paddy, is that Viserys really wants to be seen as not just a king in that dinner scene. He wants to be seen as a father, a husband, a brother.
Yeah.
Because being a king has sort of been what's caused a lot of this illness, hasn't it? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, part of that scene as well is when he has the speech with the family, is him saying, like, this is what you all fight over. This is what you all fall out and fight about. And this power, this seat that it's such a destructive seat. And this is what it does. This is what it actually does to you. I'm the physical manifestation of what the power of this thing does to good people. And you all want it, and it's a curse. And I think in that scene, he's just saying to everybody, look at me as a man. Stop seeing me as a king. Look at me for who I really am, as Viserys Targaryen. I think by that time, he's beyond, he's over titles, he's over duty, he's over all of it. But that was the thing of that speech for me when I went in. It's almost like, look what this has done to me. Yet you all crave it. You know, all I wanted was for you to love each other. Was it that difficult? And the toughest part about being a king is like you're perceived as a weak king because you won't fulfill everybody's needs. You won't join in on illegal wars. You know, you won't do that thing. If that was real life and there's an illegal war and I swoop in and send my men, you're an asshole. You know, but in the fantasy world of Game of Thrones, you're weak. And I'm like, this guy didn't want war. He didn't want to do those things. He wanted to solve things properly, like Dracarys had solved them properly. That was at peacetime, and that's when Viserys was coming into it. And also, he's got this prophecy that he upholds. And I think he sometimes looks at people and think all the things you fight over, and none of you see the bigger picture. None of you see the wider world. You just see what you want. You're just all fucking selfish. So I feel that's what that scene was about for me when I delivered it, really. It was a guilt trip.
It's also, yes, yeah. Also, something that is sort of has been clarified maybe in the last week is that his daughter, Helena, is a dreamer. She's predicted things that have happened on the show. And it's again one of those things that the great irony that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
That his daughter has this gift that is really integral to understanding what it means to be in this family. And yeah, when we sort of found out that something that she said, like an off-the-cuff remark, came true about, was it Aemond losing an eye? We were like, oh my gosh, everything. I put the subtitles on when that character's on now, because I'm like, this is going to be important. I'm going to take some notes.
If Viserys only knew, he'd have spent more time with her.
Right.
Exactly. And obviously, and this episode brought one of the classic Game of Thrones tropes, which is just when happiness is within an inch's reach, George just cruelly scythes it out of our hands, and it just one of those great moments of misunderstanding that set forth are clearly going to set forth just years and years of absolute hell and carnage. It was just brilliant. It was amazing. I screamed out loud. I was like, "It's not her! It's the wrong fucking woman, man!" It's a nightmare.
This is what happens when you have too many children with the same name.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true.
Just have a John, a Janet, a Sarah, a Dick, a Richard. Aegon.
Mix that in with dying and being off your tits on the old milk of the poppy, and you can forgive him.
Oh, he's forgiven. And Paddy, I don't know if you ever. I don't know whether you, after you finished a gig or when it's aired or been on the screen, whether you sit back and reflect and wonder how are you feeling about it all now? Job well done? Where does it rank in your experiences of as an actor?
I feel mixed about it because I really did like the character so much. So there is a bit of sadness around it. But to be able to go in and make some kind of impact, particularly in that sort of world with the fans, they're so sort of ferociously protective and excited, about that world and those stories. So to have have honoured them in a way, to have had a fantastic response from them has been amazing. But I do feel sad. Yeah, but the story's told, and I don't see what more I could have done or the writers could have done with Viserys. The fact that he was given that kind of storyline and was managed to make that much of an impact means that I suppose somewhere along the way I did a good job. And maybe one day I'll be able to sit down and watch it properly, you know. The weird thing is, like, the weird side of it is sort of trying to stay out of the I don't want to use the word toxic, but, you know, the competitive side of things, you know, regarding our characters and our performances and this and that. That's the kind of stuff that I have to keep away from, because these are people that I really, really love. And we went on an incredible journey together, and we really put the work in on this one. And it was an absolute pleasure to do it. And it was tough, trust me. But, you know, I don't like this, but I guess that's sort of fandom in a way, like pitching actors against other actors. And people are very, very quick to judge things. I'm not in competition with these people. They're my comrades. And we really went out to work on this one to make it as good as we possibly could. And the reward is the reaction. And
Absolutely.
George, I got a text from George this morning, and you know, I woke up to that, and I was like, "Oh, fair enough." You know, that's the creator giving you a message, and I was like, "Well, if you can't accept that,
you'll have to tell us what he said."
I don't know if it should remain private between me and George, but
okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But it was very, very congratulatory.
I'll imagine it in his voice. I'll imagine this is his voice.
Hey, Penny. You did a really good job with that Viserys there. That's a great job you did there, Penny. Good man. Come to my wolf sanctuary. We'll hang out. Yeah.
He did end it by saying, "I will miss Viserys, and so will Westeros." So that was nice.
Oh.
That's definitely true, because, like, they're all going to be absolutely fucked without him. Like, you can tell the whole point. He was so good at keeping the peace, and then as soon as he left that dinner table, it all kicked off.
Yeah.
So God knows what's going to happen in episode 9 after this.
That's a typical family dinner for the Considines, that is.
Listen, Paddy, we know you've got a full day of speaking to people. We'll let you go. I just want to say, on behalf of all Thrones fans, anyone that's watched Thronecast, anyone that's listened to House of the Dragon, anyone that's like into this, thank you so much, because you brought to life one of the greats, and you did a sterling job, and you did Viserys proud, and you did Westeros proud, my friend. Thanks, Paddy.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, Paddy. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
There will be a new episode of Dragoncast, home of House of the Dragon, every single week. Do us a favour, subscribe, like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the podcast. Follow us on Twitter @dragoncast.pod, or send us an email, dragoncast@daftdoris.com. Thanks very much.